Hey man, I've recently been doing some contemplation about people's dependency upon cellular telephones.
Yeah man, me too. I've really noticed that everyone always seems to be on their mobile device instead of really being in the moment.
Exactly. And I feel like this is a very significant issue that needs to be addressed immediately.
Yes, immediately.
Do any of you not own a cell phone?
No, I own like 4.
I sure do,
Yes, I do.
Do you see other people around on cell phones and wonder if they're losing touch with reality or anything?
Disconnected all the time. They're reconnected to something else rather than reality, yeah.
Do you ever feel like you have a relationship with your cell phones like you would with a person?
She calls it her baby sometimes.
That's a lie. No,
that is true.
The new iPhone, the new whatever. It's a trendy thing too.
That's all we do now, you know, as like, if we were to come together at a social event, all we do is take pictures, go on the internet, go on our phones.
I think a lot of us are influenced by so many things.
A lot of people are going to start questioning that. And I see people have started questioning that.
I mean, I guess you can definitely say that it like cuts us off from the people around us.
Because there is very much a disconnect. If you're constantly surrounded by tailor-made information, and it's designed to get a very real impulse out of you, whether it's you vote for this or you buy this, I can see how putting too much of a predilection on the fake, the imaginary, rather than what we can see, has probably detrimented us.
You spend all your time on your cell phone, that's what you're gonna think.
Do you think that this government would experiment on its own citizens without letting them know?
They're doing it right now.
This is kind of conspiratorial. If they're capable of doing mind control with certain technologies?
I don't believe that's possible.
Can control a person's thoughts?
Not exactly. I don't, no, I've never been aware of that,
You can give people drugs and then control their mind. You can give people drugs and keep them going back to doing whatever you want them to do.
I do know there's a couple of drugs that can affect the way that a person may behave or act. I can't imagine how they would do that.
Yeah, definitely by advertisements and stuff.
The media
Can affect the brain, but I don't think it's something that can be done remotely through a device yet.
Subliminal messaging that is used by companies in order to have their products be bought by people over other products.
what we wear, what we think, it's really influenced just by the internet.
Kind of like a Skinner's box. You constantly reward people, they're going to be addicted to the sensation of reward.
We allow them to look at our phones, wouldn't we let them look at our minds,
But we would have no way of knowing.
They want to be able to control how you receive this information.
Here we have a man who's chosen the Instagram, his apple pie a la mode. While he fumbles through the filters, his ice cream has gotten a la hot and the pie a la cold. As you can see, this street performer's drawn a crowd to watch him do his thing. But instead of just enjoying the show, it seems everyone's decided to make a documentary. Notice this unreasonably attractive couple enjoying a reasonably priced Italian dinner together. Social networking instead of working on getting to know each other better.
People are becoming so attached to their smartphones that you can barely find a person who will leave the house without one anymore. People are spending a full third of their waking hours on the phone now. On the phone! Hardly anyone can seem to go anywhere without a smartphone. The average person now touches their smartphone display over 2,600 times a day. Probably more than anything else they touch at all. Studies have found that nearly half of all people who own one use it for an alarm clock, too, so they're sleeping with an E.M.F emitting device, which even the World Health Organization has now classified as possibly carcinogenic, right in their bedroom, in some cases, right next to their pillow on a bedside stand, or even under it. Our whole society is being edited around having a smartphone now. Signs have been put up at college campuses to remind students to look up. That's a thing that exists now. And the Department of Transportation, and probably every state in this country, are constantly putting up signs on the side of highways reminding people if they text and drive, they could likely kill themselves or someone else.
We got a text. It's from that cute guy Patrick. Look. Ooh la la.
We aren't programming this technology anymore, you guys. It's programming us. It is rewiring us to require a near constant electrostimulus.
Little Ethan here is celebrated being the center of the universe for 1 year. But the world's greatest dad is more worried about Facebooking it than actually being here. Let's listen in and see if we can get some context.
Please hurry, we're at 382 Pine.
He has the nerve to make a phone call. It's such a pivotal moment in his friend's life.
So here are just 5 examples of how this is changing us, rewiring us, engineering us. First, you have the rise of the constant checker. You've seen these people in public, I guarantee it. It's the person that even when they set their phone down, say at the table or something like that at a restaurant while they're eating, they still have to continuously touch it anyway, even if they're not actually looking at it. Studies have shown that 43% of people in America, and I'm sure this trend probably holds for developed nations, are considered constant checkers, which is probably on the increase. People who constantly, obsessively have to check their phone, their email, their Facebook, their Twitter, their Instagram, their text, online news sites, whatever it is, they cannot live a normal life anymore without their phone with them all the time. Studies on these people actually show they have a significantly higher level of stress than people who don't do this to themselves, with over 40% of them realizing that they're basically addicted to the stimuli and that it might have a negative effect on their physical and mental health, but they continue to do it anyways because they just cannot help it. Then this just came out, brain drain, a study that showed that the mere presence of a smartphone in a room doesn't even have to be, you don't even have to be using it. Just having it in the room for a large number of people actually reduces cognitive capacity just by being in the room. So don't even have to be on the phone, but just the fact that what they called an attractive high priority stimuli like the smartphone being there in the room is enough to drain mental resources for a lot of people. And how they figured this out was they had college students, they put them in a room, and some of them had the phone in the room with them either on a desk or in a bag or in a pocket. And then they had them do math problems, and they had another group of college students and they put the smartphone in another room entirely. And the students who had their phone in the other room did significantly better on the test. It was simple math problems, it wasn't hard stuff. But what they also found on the test is that people who had the phone in the room answered that they thought the phone being there had no effect on them, which also shows a contrast between what people think and the actual reality. And speaking of an effect on reality, Twitter rumors have caused everything from a run on the banks in Kazakhstan to the fact that Facebook has now been referred to as the best human research lab ever. And considering now that Facebook has just hit an average of 2 billion users per month, it bears repeating that in 2002, Facebook ran a random experiment on nearly 700,000 users for a week, where they would show them either positive, happy stuff in their feeds or negative, depressing stuff in their feeds. And what do you know? The people with the happy feeds posted happy posts, and the people with the negative stuff tended to post angry, depressing stuff. So it isn't just that people are addicted to checking it every other 5 minutes, but Facebook has proven with quite a large sample group for any psychological research study that it can manipulate people's emotions. They have that power, and now they've got 2 billion users a month with which to do it. I also read, and unbelievably, but I guess this is where we're at, that researchers at Birkbeck, University of London, and King's College London say that 3/4 of all UK toddlers, that's children between the age of 6 months and 3 years old, now use iPads or smartphones every day. 6-month-olds using iPads every day. I mean, just that's what's going on. And I don't know how many times I've personally seen this, but we'll be sitting down to dinner at a restaurant and a mother will come in, plunk her small kid down, and immediately prop up an iPad right in front of his face and then pull out her phone. They don't talk to each other. They don't look at each other. If the kid tries to get his mom's attention, maybe show her something happening in the cartoon or whatever that she's turned on to distract him, she won't even look because she's too concerned with checking Instagram or whatever on her phone to even give her own kid the time of day. Parents are admittedly ignoring their children, and the children are learning to ignore everyone else because of it. And studies are showing that smartphone addicted parents have more negative interactions with their children when they do interact with their children. But is all of it having physical consequences too?
A new study out of the University of California, Irvine says devoting more attention to your smartphones than your children could mean they'll have improper brain development and emotional disorders later in life.
And that's certainly what's being suggested by the fact that social skills have now eroded to the point that college students are having to take etiquette classes to try and relearn even the basics on how to physically interact with people in real life. And experts are even warning that children spending all their time on these kinds of devices are showing a startling lack of ability not only to read other people's emotions, but a lack of being able to show empathy, kind of like little robots. which kind of makes you wonder what it's going to look like in another few generations of this, actually. And then finally, I know I've mentioned this before, but Microsoft Canada came out with a study a few years back which showed that the human attention span has shrunk overall from 12 seconds in the year 2000 to 8 seconds in 2013, which the tech giant noted is 1 second shorter than the attention span of the average goldfish. And I went and got the study and read it, and it was actually written by Microsoft to its corporate customer base to show how they could advertise things to people in a world where technology is decreasing everyone's ability to pay attention long enough to even care about what's in an ad. And of course, Microsoft did what it could to put a positive spin on all of this, but after reading through it, not only is it obvious they're talking about human beings as if we are now mere computers, but it's also pretty evident to me that the technology is definitely programming the people more than the people are programming it. The thing has creepy lines like, "It's no surprise that increased media consumption and digital lifestyles reduce the ability for consumers to focus for extended periods of time. But I never would have guessed that tech-savvy consumers are getting better at processing information and encoding that information to memory. If there's no need to stay tuned in, why not move on to the next new and exciting thing for another hit of dopamine?" Yeah. So we're not only being completely removed from actual reality, but now we're becoming these little techno junkies that are just looking out for that next hit of dopamine. That's how they discuss us. Like little human, biological, android, programmable computers that are just down to where can we get our next hit of stimulus.
Get off the phone. It's gonna be okay. There's no need to be afraid. It doesn't love you. It's gonna die one day. The government is probably spying on you with it anyway.
Google chairman and Bilderberg attendee Eric Schmidt recently said that soon the internet will become part of our presence all the time.
The internet there'll be so many IP addresses because of IPv6, so many devices, sensors, things that you're wearing, things that you're interacting with, that you won't even sense it. It'll be part of your presence all the time.
And I know I've talked about this before, but he's saying the internet is going to become a part of you, a part of your body, like an arm or a leg. And if you look around, you will see that that is basically true.
I've particularly started noticing the amount of people who will cross a crosswalk with their face buried in the phone, when if they thought about it logically, you're putting yourself in danger needlessly.
People are literally teaching themselves how to walk down a sidewalk without looking where they're going. It's a compulsion. It's like watching people go out to eat now, and the person puts their phone down like they're gonna stop, and they just can't stop. The way a crackhead just can't stop shooting up crack.
When did we as a society get to a point where we're not able to do a basic function like eat without being on the phone? Maybe it's just because of how I was raised. We came from a poor family, but when you go to a restaurant, it used to kind of be like a big thing. You're going out to eat, you know, we're going to have a conversation, we're going to share some time together, a family date, a friend date, a date, whatever you're doing. But now it's like whole groups of everyone in the restaurant. It's quiet and no one's talking to each other and everybody's on a phone. Everyone's on the computer. They're on the computer all the time. They can't go to the grocery store and make it through the produce section without calling someone or texting somebody about broccoli or whatever the hell. I don't know. What happened to us? We can't exist in reality anymore without a freaking cell phone. It's not normal. This isn't normal. It's creepy.
And polls now show that 44% of babies under the age of 1 are using mobile devices on a daily basis. 44%. Half. And the number jumps up to 77% by the age of 2. And you can hardly find anywhere where there isn't a cell tower. They're everywhere. This technology is mutating people into biological androids. The internet is becoming a part of us, and you can't spend all of your time interacting with a device like that that's emitting electromagnetic radiation signals into your head and it not have effects on your central nervous system and your brain. This problem has reached a level now where people are actually doing what's called a digital detox. And companies are providing this where they will take you somewhere and make sure you're not allowed to have your phone. But you go somewhere for several days without any devices, no phones, no tablets, no computers, no TV, nothing. Which used to just be the way people lived anyway, just saying. But these days that's considered radical. Studies on these people show that they physically start interacting with each other differently when they don't have their phone. Not only are they not Googling everything, for one thing, they actually have to use their own brain to figure things out. But for two, they actually start making more eye contact with each other. They sit more upright. They become more physically involved in the conversation. They become more present in the real world.
Get off the phone, it's gonna be okay. There's no need to be afraid. It doesn't love you, it's gonna die one day. It's crawling with E. coli bacteria anyway. It's gonna be okay.
The world is not going to explode if you don't have a phone. I know my inbox looks like a nightmare from hell, but I really don't care. I cannot allow myself to be a slave to these things. Sometimes you just have to turn it off, go outside, ground yourself, stare at a tree, as my dad used to say. We don't have to become dehumanized, programmed biological androids who only know how to interact with each other through a technological medium and who are just looking for that next hit of electro-stimulus dopamine. We don't have to be dehumanized down to that level by our technology.
I have 422 friends, yet I'm lonely. I speak to all of them every day, yet none of them really know me. The problem I have sits in the spaces between looking into their eyes or at a name on a screen. I took a step back and opened my eyes. I looked around and realised that this media we call social is anything but when we open our computers and it's our doors we shut. All this technology we have, it's just an illusion. Community, companionship, a sense of inclusion. Yet when you step away from this device of delusion, you awaken to see a world of confusion. A world where we're slaves to the technology we mastered, where information gets sold by some rich, greedy bastard. A world of self-interest, self-image, self-promotion, where we all share our best bits but leave out the emotion. We're at our most happy with an experience we share, but is it the same if no one is there? Be there for your friends and they'll be there too, but no one will be if a group message will do. We edit and exaggerate, crave adulation. We pretend not to notice the social isolation. We put our words into order until our lives are glistening. We don't even know if anyone is listening. Being alone isn't the problem. Let me just emphasise, if you read a book, paint a picture, or do some exercise, you're being productive and present, not reserved and recluse. You're being awake and attentive and putting your time to good use. So when you're in public and you start to feel alone, put your hands behind your head, step away from the phone. You don't need to stare at your menu or at your contact list. Just talk to one another. Learn to coexist. I can't stand to hear the silence of a busy commuter train where no one wants to talk through the fear of looking insane. We're becoming unsocial. It no longer satisfies to engage with one another and look into someone's eyes. We're surrounded by children who, since they were born, have watched us living like robots and think it's the norm. It's not very likely you'll make world's greatest dad if you can't entertain a child without using an iPad. When I was a child, I'd never be home. Be out with my friends on our bikes, we would roam. I'd wear holes in my trainers and graze up my knees. We'd build our own clubhouse high up in the trees. Now the park's so quiet it gives me a chill. See no children outside and the swings hanging still. There's no skipping, no hopscotch, no church and no steeple. We're a generation of idiots, smartphones and dumb people. So look up from your phone, shut down the display. Take in your surroundings, make the most of today. Just one real connection is all it can take to show you the difference that being there can make. Be there in the moment that she gives you the look that you remember forever as when love overtook. The time she first holds your hand or first kiss your lips. The time you first disagree but still love her to bits. The time you don't have to tell hundreds of what you've just done because you want to share this moment with just this one. The time you'll sell your computer so you can buy a ring for the girl of your dreams who is now the real thing. The time you want to start a family, and the moment when you first hold your little girl and get to fall in love again. The time she keeps you up at night and all you want is rest, and the time you wipe away the tears as your baby flees the nest. The time your baby girl returns with a boy for you to hold, and the time he calls you granddad and makes you feel real old. The time you take in all you've made just by giving life attention, and how you're glad you didn't waste it by looking down at some invention. The time you hold your wife's hand, sit down beside her bed, you tell her that you love her, lay a kiss upon her head. She then whispers to you quietly, as her heart gives a final beat, that she's lucky she got stopped by that lost boy in the street. But none of these times ever happened. You never had any of this. When you're too busy looking down, you don't see the chances you miss. So look up from your phone, shut down those displays. We have a finite existence, a set number of days. Don't waste your life getting caught in the net, as when the end comes, nothing's worse than regret. I'm guilty too of being part of this machine, this digital world we are heard but not seen, where we type as we talk and we read as we chat, where we spend hours together without making eye contact. Look up from your phone, shut down that display. Stop watching this video. Live life the real way. Give people your love, don't give them your like. Disconnect from the need to be heard and defined. Go out into the world, leave distractions behind.
Switch off your TV, it's the easiest thing you can do. Keep them out your home, they have no control over you. Take a walk in the sunshine, hear the children play, 'cause fear is what they want, and love is the way, yeah. Oh, I said love is the way. Oh, I said don't be afraid. Love, 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 love. The sun shines every day, yeah. The sun shines every day, yeah. Yeah. The sun shines every day. The sun shines every day.